So good evening. Last time we did the section on who is God in the overview of the Bhagavad Gita, and I am now continuing with the overview of the Bhagavad Gita, and I am going to speak on who am I. So in the Bhagavad Gita, there is a very beautiful verse which says, "Na sato vidyate bhavo, na bhavo vidyate satah. Ubhayorapi drishtvantastvo aniyos tattvadarshibhi." That of that which is unreal, there is no continuance. And of that which is real, there is no cessation. It means that if there is something that is permanent, that permanency means it is real. If something is constantly changing, then for practical purposes, it is considered to be unreal. The only illusion is that it is permanent. But in actual fact, since it is not permanent, it is not real. For example, if someone asks you, who are you? Many of us tend to answer with the kind of work that we do. Because, as you know, for most of us, our work defines us. And our work defines us, so we will say that this is what I do. I am a surgeon, I'm a lawyer, I'm a chartered accountant, I'm whatever. So you will define yourself by the work that you're doing. But unfortunately, when you define yourself by the work that you do, you should realize that the work that you're doing is only temporary. Quite in the beginning of my career, or perhaps just before my career began as a surgeon, I had an instructive conversation with a surgeon who was about to retire. And this surgeon who was about to retire said that I have been totally dedicated to my profession as a surgeon. Not only have I been not only have I been dedicated, but I have even sacrificed all other engagements for the sake of surgery. So all my social life is connected to my patients or to my work in the hospital. I have no friends other than those who are connected to me professionally. I have chosen to be a bachelor and remain unmarried so that I could dedicate myself to my profession. But he said that next week I retire. And when I retire, I am going to really wonder what I shall do. How will I fill my time? How shall I occupy my mind? Everything that I was doing was connected to this field of surgery. And now all of a sudden, there will be an emptiness in my life. I will wonder how to keep myself occupied. Indeed, he said, I think I shall go mad. So for those of us who when they're asked, who am I? And they answer by saying, this is what I do, and this is my profession, or this is my work, or this is where I work. You should note that in fact, this is only temporary. Others define themselves by, it doesn't matter whether I'm working or I'm not working. You see, my mind is the same. I remember very long ago when I was just passing out of college, a friend called me up and he said that, I'm going to get married. And I found the most wonderful girl. So I said, what's wonderful about her? And he said What's wonderful about her is that she likes everything I like. We like the same movies, we like the same books, we like the same music. Indeed, he said, ours is a marriage of minds. So I cautioned him. I said, you're marrying her because her mind is identical to yours? He said, yes. I said, please be careful. Nothing changes faster than a woman's mind, or a man's mind for that matter. Chanchalahi mana Krishna pramati balavadridam tasyaham nigram manye vayurivasa duskaram. The mind is restless, turbulent, obstinate, always changing. To try to control the mind is like trying to control the wind. And yet, he had a marriage of minds. Well, equally unfortunately, in a 6-month period, they decided to conclude the marriage. And by the time another year had passed, they were totally divorced. So you cannot define yourself by your mind, because even your mind changes. The music that you like, the books that you read, the movies that you watch, the friends that you have, all of them keep on changing. You might think you identify yourself by your intellectual values or your intellectual way of thinking, but even that is constantly changing. In fact, we keep changing our ideas, we keep changing our philosophies, we keep changing our political views. So even our intellect, our buddhi keeps on changing. And if you think that it's your intelligence that defines you, let me tell you that unfortunately from the age of 25, or let's say from the age of 21, you are losing 25,000 brain cells every year. Now you can deduct 21 from your age, and then you can count how many brain cells you've lost. And indeed, as we age, we keep on losing more and more brain cells. Most of them are not replaced. So what really happens is your mind, your intelligence, they keep on changing, and in some cases keep on deteriorating. For those who are becoming senile, for those who are unfortunately afflicted with Alzheimer's disease, even your intellect will keep on deteriorating. Your memory will go forever. And indeed, whoever you think you are is going to be coming to an end. So what is it that is permanent within you? What is it? What is that part of you which remains permanently? And that part of you which remains permanently is the core of your being. And that is what we are here to discuss. We are here to try to understand what is the core of your being, or what is indeed your soul. If we go to the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, in the 14th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, there is a verse which says, Mama yonir mahad brahma tasmin garbham dadamyaham sambhava sarva bhutanam tato bhavati bharata. So Krishna says that of this total material substance, which is called the Mahat, he impregnates that Mahat. So the divinity is divided into superior energy and inferior energy. So Krishna has two energies, superior energy and inferior energy. This is the teaching of Sankhya philosophy. And the superior energy is called Purush. The inferior energy is called Prakriti. So Krishna explains that at the beginning of creation, he impregnates the Mahat In fact, what he does is he impregnates Prakriti itself. Sarva yonishu kaunteya murtaya sambhavanti yah tasham brahma mahadyonir aham bija prajapitah. So Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the seed giving father. So there is Prakriti and there is Purush, and Purush impregnates Prakriti. And the result of that impregnation is all living entities. All living entities get their form and their being from the impregnation of Prakriti by Purush. And thus, we are part Purush and we are part Prakriti. Elsewhere in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains, Bhumi apo nalo vayur, earth, water, fire and air, mano buddhir ahankar, itya me bhinna prakriti ashtada. So Krishna explains that of Prakriti, which is the bhinna Prakriti, which is the inferior energy of his, you are earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and your false ego. All of these are your inferior separated energies. They are all part of Prakriti. On the other hand, he says, Aparayam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabhao yayedam dharyate jagat. And Krishna says that you are in fact part of my superior energy. And this superior energy of mine, which you are, is sustaining and maintaining creation. So there are innumerable tiny Purushas and there are one supreme Purush. So Krishna is represented by the one Purush, and all of us individual souls are representing all the multiple other Purushas. This is very important to understand because you have a soul within you and you have Prakriti with you. And the soul is the Purush and the Prakriti is the earth, water, fire, air, and yes, ether. And even mind, intelligence, and ego. All of them are in fact part of this combination of Prakriti and Purush. Now this Purush is infinitesimal, and because he is infinitesimal, he is constantly struggling with this Prakriti. Have you had an occasion to struggle with your mind? Have you had an occasion to struggle with what is going on within you? Then you will understand the meaning of this verse, which says, Mamai vansho jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shastindriyani prakriti sthani karshati. He says, the living entity, which is the Purush, is but an infinitesimal aspect of me, is an ansh of me. And therefore, he is struggling with the six senses that include the mind. So he is struggling with Prakriti. You think your mind, your intelligence, your ahankar, the activities you do with your physical body are all under your control, but indeed you are only struggling with them. Who controls your Prakriti? Krishna says, Mayadhyakshena Prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. So Krishna says, I am controlling Prakriti. And all the activities of living, non-living beings, their creation, their dissolution is all under my control. As a matter of fact, it is described in the Upanishads that tena vina tranamapi na chalati. Without God's consent, not even one blade of grass moves. So if it moves on the left side, it moves by God's consent. If it moves on the right side, it also moves by God's consent. How does this Purush or this individual soul who is struggling with this Prakriti of the mind, intelligence, ego, and the body, how is he situated? So that is described in the Bhagavad Gita. And in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that yatha prakashayatya ekah kritsnam imam lokam ravi tatha shetri shetram kritsnam prakashayatyo bharata. Just like the sun illuminates the entire solar system with light, so also does the individual soul illumine the entire body with consciousness. So this individual soul lies inside this physical body and it illuminates this entire body with consciousness. But there is something special about this soul which illuminates the entire body with consciousness. It is not stuck to the body. It is not bound to the body. In fact, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains again that just as the sky, it pervades the space without being attached to anything. Tatha, same way, you find that the soul pervades the body without becoming attached to it. So the soul that lies within the body, illuminating the entire body with consciousness, at the same time is not physically bound to the body because it is a non-physical entity. But there is something unique about this soul, and this soul is a soul that is indestructible. The soul cannot be destroyed. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avinashi tu tad vidhi yena sarvam idam tatam. That which pervades the body is indestructible. So this soul, this Purush, which pervades this body, is completely indestructible. But even though it is indestructible, because it is an ansh, because it is a fragment, mamai vamso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana, mana shastendriyani prakritistani karshati. It is simply struggling to manage this mind, body, intelligence, this ego, this physical entity. And it's not able to manage it because in fact, really God is managing it. Daivi esagunamayi mama maya duratyaya mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. So Krishna explains that you cannot really change Prakriti. You cannot really control your body, mind, intelligence, because all of them are being controlled by me. Not a blade of grass moves without God's consent. And it is the foolish person who thinks that he is in control of his mind, his body, his intelligence, his ego. Krishna says, Prakriti kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvashah ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. The foolish living entity imagines that he is the doer of activities which are in fact performed by Prakriti. So all activities are performed by God, They are not performed directly by him, but they are performed through Prakriti. So God really controls yourself by controlling the Prakriti which makes up your body, mind, and intelligence. कार्य कारणम कर्तृत्वे हेतुर प्रकृति उच्यते पुरुष सुख दुखानाम भोक्तृत्व हेतुर उच्यते. That in fact Prakriti keeps on doing everything, but the Purush who lies inside this Prakriti envelope, he starts thinking that, hey, I'm doing it. Therefore, when it is successful, he is overjoyed. When it is unsuccessful, he thinks I'm a loser and I'm a failure. But in fact, everything is being done by Prakriti. Indeed, it is being done by God through Prakriti. This soul, as I pointed out, is avinashi tu tad viddhi yena sarvam idam tatam. It is indestructible. And Krishna goes on to describe to Arjun, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavaka, na chainyam kledyanti apo, na shoshati marutaha. This soul cannot be cut by a sword, it cannot be burnt by fire, it cannot be wet by water, it cannot be burnt, cannot be dried by the wind. So it is completely indestructible. But while it is indestructible, this Prakriti is always changing. The characteristic of Prakriti is that it is always changing. And in the process of its change, this Prakriti is what we may see as perishable. And therefore, for one who is born, death is certain. And Krishna explains that for one who dies, for him birth is certain. And he explains that even while we are in this body, our body is changing all the time. You may think that your physical body matured at the age of 21. But structurally, every single cell in your body changes 100% every 7 years. And as a matter of fact, if you look at the radioisotope version of it, and if you have radioisotope labels which are put into your body, you will find that every single molecule in your body changes in 1 year. So in fact, you think that you are a statue when really you are a river which is constantly changing, where not a single drop of water is the same. Every moment, the water in the river keeps changing as it keeps flowing. You may think that you are a fixed image, but in fact, you are a flame. Because just like in the flame, which appears to have a form, it keeps having different molecules in it. So also your physical body might appear to be one, but in actual fact, your physical body itself is constantly changing. And because it is always changing, Krishna describes and he explains that dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yavanam jara tatha dehantara praptir dhiras tatra na muyati. He explains that indeed you are constantly changing your body from infancy to childhood to youth to middle age to old age. You are changing your body all the time. And finally, he says, at the time of the physical death of this body, you change your body once again. So indeed, the Purush moves from one soul to another soul. It carries with it the impressions of the previous life, like the breeze carries the fragrance of a flower. Shariram yad avapnoti yad chapya utkramati ishvara grihit vaitani samyati vayur gandhani va ashayat. So Krishna explains to Arjuna how the soul leaves the body and moves on to the next, carrying with it the impressions of the previous life, just like the breeze carries the fragrance of a flower. So, what is it that it carries? It carries with it all your unfulfilled desires, it carries all your vasanas, it carries all your thoughts, speech, habit patterns, which are your karmas, and it carries with it your subtle body with all its likes, its dislikes, with all the subtle nature of the impressions of your mind. You carry with it from one body to another. So Krishna explains that vasanshe jirnani yatha vihaya navani grinati naro parani tatha sharirani vihaya jirnanya anyani samyati navani dehi. So just as you go home and you cast off your old clothes and you wear new clothes, so also at the time of death, you cast off your physical body so that you can attain another physical body. But just like many of us, when we change our clothes, we may keep our underwear on. Similarly, when we change our physical body, which is Bhumi Apo Nalo Vayurkham, and our Purush leaves this one body and moves on to the next. Just like in physical fact, we may keep our underwear, so also the soul, when it moves on from one gross body to another gross body, it carries the impressions of the previous life in the form of the subtle body. This subtle body, which is carried from one physical body to the next physical body, is called many things. Some of them call it Karan Sharir, some of them call it the mind, intelligence, ego. But in fact, it has been described in the Yoga Vasisht that when it discriminates, it is called Buddhi. When it has Sankalpa, Vikalpa, it is called Manas. When it has memory, it is called Chitta. And when it has arrogation, like I, me, and mine, the same subtle body is called Ahankar. So depending upon the functions, it is called various names, but it is one subtle body, which Krishna describes is carried from one body to the next, just like the breeze carries the fragrance of a flower. I'll repeat the verse. Shariram yad avapnoti yad chapya utkramati shwara grihit vaitani samyati vayur gandhani va ashayet. So you carry with you the impressions of the subtle body, and that subtle body which you have formed while you have lived this life by your choices, by your association, by your self-discipline or lack of it, this subtle body then acquires a gross body. And according to the nature of the subtle body, so whatever kind of behavior you have engaged in this life, it forms your subtle body. And this subtle body, when it moves on from one gross body to the next gross body, it gets another gross body which may not be at all like the previous gross body, but will be a perfect match for the subtle body which you have created. For example, let us say that you are born in a very pious family. In this pious family, you certainly have no access, or you, because of the values that were brought up, that you were born in, you don't take any intoxicants, you don't take tobacco, you don't take alcohol, you don't indulge in any drugs, recreational drugs. You are very contained in your sexual life. You are happily married and very loyal to your spouse. You also are living a life which is self-disciplined, fulfilling all your duties towards your spouse, your children, your parents. You will get a different kind of body. But if you are born even in that kind, with that background, and you keep the wrong association, and you start drinking, you start eating products of violence, you start taking drugs, then the next body you get will be a match for the subtle body that you have now acquired as a result of the kind of life you have changed. And therefore, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Asurim yonim apanam mudho janmani janmani. That those who have lived the life of asuras, those who've lived godless lives of enjoyment, entertainment, passions, when they are reborn, they are not born into a family which will give you a body that is suitable for self-discipline or spiritual evolution. You will get a body which is suitable for all the habits that you picked up. And these same habits or inclination towards these habits, these proclivities, which you carry with you from one gross body to the next gross body. This is the story. And this cannot be seen by ordinary people. The Bhagavad Gita says, Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitan mudo nanu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. So, the question that has come is that if the soul is indestructible, why do so many people lament when the soul leaves the body? And therefore, this verse I am quoting, it says, Utkramantam sthitam vapi bhunjanam va gunanvitan mudho nanu pashyanti jnana chakshusha. So, fools, there are fools who get disturbed, who weep, because they can't see what is happening. They see death before them. They do not see one soul moving from one body to another. They do not see that indeed there is no death, but that it moves from one physical body to another. Only those who have Jnana Chakshu. Jnana Chakshu means those who are enlightened. Those whose eyes have the kajal of divine knowledge. Even Devatas do not have necessarily that divine knowledge. So even Devatas may weep. Even the Pandavas weep on the death of Abhimanyu. Because only when you are enlightened, when you have attained Jivan Mukti, when you have perfect vision, then you will not weep. Otherwise, people who cannot see how the soul moves from one body to another, who have not attained enlightenment, such people are afflicted by this loss and this change. Because in truth, although they are all Purush, they imagine they are Prakriti. And although they are the soul, they imagine they are the body. So if you are the soul and you imagine that you are the body, because of the illusion that is created by nature, then you will weep, then you will sorrow when the changes occur in Prakriti around you. And what do you mean by the changes that occur in Prakriti around you? The changes that occur in Prakriti around you are death of people around you, parting from people around you, because you are dying. Your physical disablement, your natural loss of physical function as you age, all of these will cause disturbance to this person. Because these changes are taking place in Prakriti. But while changes are taking place in Prakriti, the Purush who identifies with it, he thinks that he is deteriorating. He thinks that his body is about to age. He thinks that himself is aging, although it's only the Prakriti that is aging. So, karya karanam kartritve hetur prakriti uchyate purusha sukha dukhanam bhoktritva hetur uchyate. So, we have another question. I will try to answer it in the sequence of how I am discussing. That even a blade of grass doesn't move without my wish, then how can we control our behaviors and our addictions? So, another question which has come is that everything in Prakriti is determined and run by God, then all our attempts to control our mind and body is futile. So, the question is that if everything is being controlled by God, what is our role? Very simple. Our role is to turn to God. When you turn to God, then God controls Prakriti. If you don't turn to God, then all your attempts at controlling Prakriti are lost. I'll give you a simple example. And that simple example is, all of you must have heard of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's a perfect example. Because in Alcoholics Anonymous, people who drink and who are addicted, they try everything to give up alcohol. They try everything to give up their addiction. But Prakriti is so strong that they're completely unable to control this addiction to alcohol, which ruins their work life, which ruins their family life, which ruins their social standing, which leads to ultimate degradation. They can't control it. So when they go to Alcoholics Anonymous, what are they taught? When they go to Alcoholics Anonymous, they are taught to turn to that one power which is greater than them, which is God. And by taking the help of God to control their Prakriti, they have to pass one day at a time with God's help. I would recommend all of you, please study this literature of Alcoholics Anonymous. And Krishna says exactly the same thing. Daivi yasa gunamayi mama maya duratyaya ma meva ye prapadyante mayam etam taranti te. He says, why are you struggling with Prakriti? You can never overcome Prakriti because Prakriti is my divine energy. And you are only an infinitesimal spark. Therefore, you cannot control Prakriti. Mamaivanso jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana manashastindriyani prakriti-sthani karshati. You are struggling with your mind and your five senses. And there is no way you can even control your mind and your five senses. But he says, Mam eva ye prapadyante mayam etam taranti te. But when you surrender unto me, then you can transcend Prakriti, because Prakriti is under my direction. Mayadhyakshena Prakriti suyate sa characharam hetunanena kaunteya jagad viparivartate. Prakriti is under the divine instructions of God. Therefore, by yourself, you can never overcome Prakriti. But when you surrender unto God, God will control Prakriti for you. This is very important. I hope that both of you, Divya and Rachita, have got the answer to your question. So what can you do to control your behaviors and your addictions? You have to turn to God. And then God will empower your Prakriti. Please understand, your mind's control means your mind is also part of Prakriti. Your intelligence control is also, your intelligence is also part of Prakriti. So everything under Prakriti is determined and run by God. All attempts to control your mind and body without the help of God will not meet with fruition. So if you go to Narcotics Anonymous, if you go to Alcoholics Anonymous, if you go to Gamblers Anonymous, you will find that all these which help you to overcome physical addictions, mental addictions are possible when you surrender to God. So what is the true meaning of surrender to God? Yes, we are coming to that. We are coming to that. So we will come to surrender. We just started Bhagavad Gita. Just yesterday I've told you about who is God. Today I'm trying to explain in the limited time possible, who am I? So if I am able to answer this without keeping, see, another question has come from Anurag, which says, when everything is controlled by God, is everything destined? Now that will be answered in why bad things happen to good people, which is another topic altogether. I assure you that if you listen to all that I am going to tell you in these 10, 12 days, all your questions will be answered. I guarantee you that. And if there is something that is not answered, then I will surely answer it. But if you listen carefully, you will find that every question that you have will automatically become answered. Krishna says to Arjun, when I have told you all that you need to know, there will be nothing more to be known, noumenal or phenomenal. You won't need to know anything more after I explain everything to you. So how to surrender to God, what is destiny, how can we overcome our destiny, all that will be discussed. It's a matter of the subject matter. Today the subject matter is who am I? So in the 13th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains that this Purush who is situated within this physical envelope should understand that this earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego, they are all known as Kshetram, that is known as the field that you have. Each of us, we have a field, and that field is called a Kshetram, which is earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and ego. And he says that soul which is situated within, he is called Kshetrajna. Kshetrajna means one who is the knower of the field. So the soul that is located within your body is the knower of this physical body, mind, intelligence, ego. And then Krishna gives one more dramatic statement. He says, I am the knower of all fields. And how is he the knower of all fields? Because he is also located within you. So you have the Atma and you have what is known as the Paramatma. Upadrushta anumantascha bharta bhokta maheshwara Paramatmeti chapyokto dehesmin purusha paraha. That in this body there is another, not just the soul, but there is another, and that other is called the Paramatma. Now, this is explained in the Mandukya Upanishad, it is explained in the Shvetashvara Upanishad, it comes in various parts of various religious texts, and it explains that Dva Suparna Sayuja Sakhaya, there is a tree, and on the branch of that tree there are two birds. One bird is eating the fruits of the tree. And the fruits of the tree are sometimes sweet, sometimes bitter, and sometimes tasteless. And seated beside him is another bird who is the observer, the witness. And he will get no fulfillment. The other one will not get fulfillment by eating the fruits of the tree until he turns his face and looks at that, his friend who is seated beside him. So indeed, the Atma is in the heart, the Paramatma is his companion. And because you are looking to the world, you are looking to Prakriti for happiness, for fulfillment, for relief from suffering, from control of your Prakriti, you will keep on going through various iterations of frustrations, life after life, birth after birth. When you turn your face and you look at that Paramatma who is seated in your heart, you will find peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. So in the heart, there is Atma and there is Paramatma. And the Paramatma plays a beautiful role in your life. He says, Ishvara sarva bhutanam hriday deshe arjuna tishtati brahmyan sarva bhutani yantrarudani maya tam eva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapshashi shashvatam. Krishna says, I am seated in your heart. And being seated in your heart, I am driving you onward towards your destiny. You are only seated in a machine made of material energy. Simply surrender to this Lord in your heart and you will attain peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. This is what Krishna says. That this is also repeated in the Kathopanishad where Krishna says, where the Lord says, where the Lord is describing the nature of the soul. He says, Atmanam rathinam viddhi shariram ratham evatu buddhim tu saradam viddhi manha pragram evacha indriyani paranyahur vishayons teshu gocharan. You are seated, the soul is seated in the chariot of your body. Your intelligence is the charioteer. The mind are the reins and the horses are the senses. One whose intelligence is not divinely guided, one whose mind is not restrained, one whose senses are not controlled, such a person goes to Narak, he goes to hell. But one whose intelligence is divinely guided, one whose mind is controlled, whose senses are controlled, such a person, he says, goes tad Vishnu Paramam Padam. Such a person goes and returns back to God. So, Krishna is the charioteer of your chariot, not just the chariot of Arjuna. You are Arjuna. Krishna is the charioteer of your chariot. You are only seated in a machine made of material energy. Krishna is driving you onward towards your destiny. You only have to stop struggling and learn how to surrender to him. And when you surrender into him, you will get peace, perfection, and the supreme destination. And if you're wondering how to go back to him, if you're wondering how to surrender to him, he will speak to you from within your heart. Tesham satatam yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. Tesham evanu kampartham aham ajnana jam tamah nashamya atma bhavasto jnana deepena bhasvatah. He says, when someone is constantly trying to worship me, when someone is constantly trying to surrender unto me, then I give him that intelligence by which to come to me. Seated in his heart with the shining lamp of knowledge, I destroy the darkness that is born out of ignorance. So Krishna says, seated in your heart, I am guiding you onward towards your destiny. Simply surrender unto me. And if you're trying to seek me, then I, in fact, will be guiding you on how to attain me. But if you choose the other path, you, birth after birth, you may go in a descending spiral. Asurim yonim apanam mudo janmani janmani. You will get a lower birth. And by lower birth, I'm not talking about jati, vad, I'm not talking about caste. I am talking about lower birth in terms of habits which make it impossible for you to become free from Prakriti. Addictions will chase you. Addictions, not just physical addictions, but also mental addictions. Emotions will torture you. Lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, madness. All these will pursue those who do not learn how to surrender to God. Therefore, the entire message of the Bhagavad Gita is that the individual must constantly learn to turn to God. Because when he turns to God, regardless of his previous actions, regardless of his previous behavior, God will help him. And God will help him not just in terms of internal transformation, but he will also transform your life externally. So, your physical life is the manifestation of what lies inside of you. If what lies inside of you is disturbed, then automatically what will lie outside of you in your life will also be disturbed. But if one has learned how to surrender to God, if one has learned how to live a life of constant devotion and surrender to God, then that will help you to transform yourself and to rise beyond and ultimately to reunite with God. There are still many topics I have to relate to you. I just have done the who is God, and today I did who am I. You should also understand right here that no individual soul can ever become God. In the Bhagavad Gita, he clearly explains that dva imau purushau loke ksharas aksharas evacha sharas sarvani bhutani kutasto aksharas uchyate. There are two types of people in this world, two types of individuals in this world. Those who are mortal and those who are immortal. Mortal means those who are going to be subject to birth and death and repeated rebirth. And this is most people. Then there is one who is considered aksharas. He is considered to be immortal because he has realized that he is the soul and he is not Prakriti. So this person who has realized that he is the soul and that he is not Prakriti, he is called Kutasto. Kutasto means if you see a blacksmith, he hammers the molten metal on an anvil. So he takes molten metal, which is put in the fire, which is almost liquid metal. He puts onto a hard piece, which is called anvil. And then he uses a hammer in order to shape that metal into the form that he wants. The person who has attained Jivan Mukti, the one who has become Akshara, he is called Kutasto. He is called Kutasto because he has realized he is the Purush. He has realized his spiritual identity. So no matter what life throws at him, no matter what difficulties or apparent hardships are inflicted on him on the perspective of Prakriti, the soul remains unchanged. He is the same in heat and cold and joy and sorrow and honor and dishonor. He is not depressed when there's cause for sorrow. He is not excited when there's cause for joy. He is free from attachment, fear, and anger. This person who is Jivan Mukt is called Kutasto. But clearly Krishna mentions Uttama Purusha Tva Anya. So he says this person is immortal, he is realized he is the soul. But he says Uttama Purusha Tva Anya Paramatmeti Udaritah. Your Lokotrayam Avishya Bhibhartya Avyaya Ishvaraha. He says the Supreme Person is yet separate, he is distinct. You should not compare him to the person who has realized his individual spiritual identity, because he is still infinitesimal, he is still an Ansh. But the Supreme Person, that is Bhagavan, he is yet different. And this person who is maintaining and sustaining creation, he is Paramatma. Tasmat Sharasati Toham. So the Krishna is explaining that Tasmat Sharasati Toham Aksharadapi cha Uttamaha Atosmi Loke Vede cha Pratita Purushotamaha. So he explains that I am beyond the mortal and I am beyond the immortal. I am beyond the Jivan Mukt also. Because I am Paramatma. So please understand that do not confuse Paramatma with Atma. Bhagavad Gita clearly differentiates between the two. Even if you attain immortality, even if you attain what we call as Jivan Mukti, you cannot become Bhagavan or you cannot become Paramatma. This should be very clear to you. I think we're running towards the conclusion of our time. Am I right?
Yes, Doctor.
Okay. So I'll conclude over here. Tomorrow we'll do a very interesting subject which requires the background of the first two. So if you missed any of the lectures of the first three lectures, then you please see the recording before you come for the next lecture which I have day after tomorrow, because that lecture is called Why Do Bad Things Happen to Good People? Of course, you could also call it Why Do Good Things Happen to Bad People? And that is about understanding the law of karma. Because we need to understand what is the law of karma before we can learn how to transcend it. Karma deals with Prakriti. Freedom from karma means that you have to act on the platform of Purush, which means you have to surrender to God. And we will come to that as we discuss more about the law of karma. So another question has come that in your first lecture you said try to be an instrument in the hands of the Lord. If you surrender to God, God will automatically act through you and you will become his instrument. This is the short answer. Long answer will be discussed when we do different forms of yoga and when we do Jivan Mukti. It's important to go through this entire initial series of an overview on who is God, who am I, why do bad things happen to good people, all these initial introductory topics, because that will help you to enable the Bhagavad Gita as we go through it. You should understand that the Bhagavad Gita really has got its knowledge spread out. Each topic is spread out in 18 chapters. So if you read only one chapter, you will not get a full understanding of it. Therefore, it is my desire to share this with you. I will also try to share with you, we have somebody attending our lectures by the name of Shankar Bhardwaj, who listens to the lecture and he records exactly which verse was quoted where. So I will try to share with you those verses so that those of you who want to seriously study Bhagavad Gita can actually read those verses from the Bhagavad Gita. So you can hear what I'm saying, and then you can affirm what I'm saying by looking in the Bhagavad Gita chapter by chapter, verse by verse, and see which are the verses I'm quoting from which chapters. So that will give you a greater in-depth understanding of Bhagavad Gita. So Jai Shri Krishna, everybody. Thank you for listening to me. And my prayers for your spiritual progress, may you become enlightened through the study of the Bhagavad Gita. And look forward to seeing you next time when we do Why Bad Things Happen to Good People. Thank you.